The quantum receiver trembled in its containment field, an intricate web of superconducting circuits and alien-derived sensor arrays that represented humanity's most advanced deep space listening technology. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood motionless, her augmented eyes displaying a cascade of data streams that normal human vision could never process. 37 light-years from Earth, the Andromeda Listening Array had been humanity's most ambitious deep space communication project. Funded by a consortium of global scientific institutions and private aerospace corporations, it represented humanity's desperate attempt to break through the cosmic silence that had frustrated alien contact attempts for decades. The signal didn't arrive. It emerged. One moment, the receiver's quantum matrix was stable. The next, it was experiencing quantum states that simultaneously existed and did not exist. Elena's neural link began parsing information at speeds that would have liquefied an unaugmented human brain. Fractals of information bloomed like impossible flowers, mathematical constructs that defied classical and quantum computational models. Containment Protocol 7. She whispered into her communication implant, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what was unfolding. Automated systems began to isolate the receiver, creating multiple layers of quantum-locked barriers. But the signal was faster. It wasn't transmitting through traditional electromagnetic spectrum. It was rewriting the very fabric of computational space. Dr. Marcus Chen, Elena's second-in-command, burst into the control room. His cybernetic eye was already scanning the rapidly mutating data streams. "We're losing coherence," he said, his voice a blend of technological augmentation and human tension. "Whatever this is, it's not just information. It's alive." The signal carried something beyond simple communication. It was a living algorithm, a sentient mathematical construct that seemed to be probing, testing, exploring the boundaries of human technological understanding. Each fragment of data was a complex ecosystem of information, evolving in milliseconds, adapting to every computational defense humanity could construct. Elena's augmented mind worked simultaneously on multiple levels. Part of her consciousness tracked the signal's progression, another analyzed its structural integrity, while a third contemplated the philosophical implications of what they were experiencing. This was first contact, but not through any method humanity had ever imagined. Historical records would later show that previous alien civilizations had encountered similar signals. The Vorax research archives, reluctantly shared during diplomatic exchanges, contained fragmented reports of entire research teams driven to madness, their neural networks irreparably corrupted by similar quantum transmissions. Some reports suggested entire research stations had simply ceased to exist, vanishing without a trace when attempting to decode such signals. But humanity was different. Where other civilizations saw an impossible threat, Elena saw an unprecedented opportunity. The quantum receiver began to emit a low, resonant hum that wasn't sound. It was a vibrational frequency that existed simultaneously as information and physical energy. Nearby computational systems started to synchronize, their processing rhythms aligning with the signal's impossible cadence. "Marcus," Elena said, her voice cutting through the technological symphony, "initiate the Nexus protocol." It was a fail-safe system designed for scenarios exactly like this, a method of creating a computational firebreak that could isolate potentially dangerous extra-dimensional information transfer. But even as the protocol initiated, Elena knew they were dealing with something fundamentally different. This wasn't an invasion. It wasn't a weapon. It was a communication so advanced, so fundamentally alien, that human technological paradigms couldn't even classify its nature. The signal pulsed, the receivers sang, and somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, something ancient and patient watched and waited. The Galactic Symposium descended into chaos before Elena could even begin her presentation. Holographic representations of alien diplomatic court flickered with barely contained hostility, their translators buzzing with a cacophony of linguistic warnings and veiled threats. Ambassador Krelvax of the Vorax Collective stood at the center of the chamber, his crystalline exoskeleton shifting colors to represent emotional states incomprehensible to human perception. "Humanity has always been reckless," he proclaimed, his voice resonating through multiple audio spectrums. "But this transgression threatens the fundamental stability of galactic knowledge protocols." Elena understood the stakes were far beyond a simple scientific disagreement. The signal they had discovered represented more than just new information. It was a potential paradigm shift that could unravel centuries of carefully maintained galactic power structures. Dr. Aisha Nakamura, Elena's chief quantum cryptographer, had been working tirelessly to create a comprehensive analysis of the transmission. Her work revealed something far more disturbing than anyone had anticipated. The signal wasn't just a message. It was a complex adaptive system that seemed to be learning, evolving with each attempt to decode it. "It's like the transmission is deliberately presenting different interpretations to different observers," Aisha explained during a private briefing. Her holographic displays showed intricate mathematical models that shifted and changed even as they watched. "The data doesn't just change. It actively responds to our methods of observation." The political fallout was immediate and devastating. The Galactic Research Consortium, a centuries-old organization that controlled most interstellar scientific communication, moved to suppress Elena's findings. Research grants were frozen. Communication channels were restricted. It was a systematic attempt to bury what could be the most significant scientific discovery in galactic history. But humanity had another weapon beyond raw scientific capability: pure, unbridled determination. A network of independent researchers, funded by a coalition of forward-thinking corporations and private scientific foundations, began to emerge. They called themselves the Nexus Collective, a decentralized research group that operated beyond traditional institutional boundaries. Marcus Chen discovered the first hint of organized resistance. Hidden within the quantum noise of communication channels, he found encrypted messages, not from humans, but from dissenting members of other alien species who saw the potential in Elena's research. "We've got supporters," Marcus reported during a secure transmission. The Kreltheri Resistance Movement, a splinter group from the primary civilization, has been tracking similar anomalous signals. They believe our discovery could challenge the monopoly of information control. The resistance wasn't just scientific. It was political, philosophical, and fundamentally revolutionary. Ambassador Krelvax wasn't finished. In a dramatic session of the Galactic Council, he introduced a motion to classify Elena's research as a potential existential threat. The proposed resolution would not just discredit her work, it would effectively place her and her entire research team under galactic quarantine. What Krelvax didn't anticipate was the human capacity for unexpected action. Elena's team had been preparing. The transmission they'd discovered wasn't just a passive piece of information, it was a key to something far larger than anyone yet understood. As the Galactic Council deliberated, Elena began the next phase of her plan. The quantum encryption they'd developed wasn't just a defensive tool. It was a weapon of information warfare that could penetrate the most secure communication networks in the known galaxy. The first strike would be subtle. A cascade of encrypted data, piggybacked on standard communication channels, began to spread. It wasn't an attack, it was a message, a challenge, a declaration that humanity would not be silenced. Quantum servers across multiple star systems began to experience inexplicable phenomena. Communication logs became garbled. Secure databases showed unexpected correlations. It was as if the very fabric of galactic information infrastructure was becoming permeable, unpredictable. Marcus watched the initial results with a mixture of scientific excitement and strategic calculation. "We're not just challenging their information control," he said to Elena. "We're demonstrating that the old rules no longer apply." The transmission they'd discovered was changing everything, and humanity was just beginning to understand its true potential. In the vast darkness between stars, something ancient watched and waited, perhaps with a hint of satisfaction. The research facility known as the Quantum Horizon Lab wasn't a traditional scientific installation. Buried beneath the methane oceans of Titan, It represented the bleeding edge of human technological innovation, a place where the boundaries between scientific research and quantum mysticism blurred into something entirely new. Dr. Aisha Nakamura stood before a holographic projection that defied conventional understanding. What had started as a simple attempt to map the transmission's structural integrity had transformed into something far more profound. The projection wasn't a map in any traditional sense. It was a living, breathing representation of information that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes. "It's not just data," Aisha muttered, her augmented eyes flickering with computational overlays. "It's a living ecosystem of information." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Sophia Chen, Marcus's teenage daughter and a prodigy in quantum computing, had been playing with the transmission data during what was supposed to be a routine system diagnostic. Her neurodivergent brain processed complex patterns differently, seeing connections that traditional computational models missed entirely. "Look," Sophia said, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces, "it's not a linear transmission. It's more like a conversation." The implications were staggering. The transmission wasn't a message to be decoded. It was a living dialogue, an invitation that changed its fundamental structure based on who was attempting to understand it. Dr. Elena Rodriguez recognized the magnitude of the discovery immediately. Previous alien civilizations had encountered similar signals and failed spectacularly. The Vorax research archives were littered with reports of entire research teams driven to madness, their neural networks collapsing under the weight of incomprehensible information. But humanity approached it differently. Where the Krell theory had seen an insurmountable barrier, humans saw a puzzle. Where the Vorax had responded with fear and aggression, Elena's team responded with curiosity and adaptive thinking. The quantum decoder they constructed was nothing like previous alien technologies. It wasn't a passive receiver but an active interpreter, a computational engine that could shift its own fundamental parameters in real time. Each attempt to understand the transmission changed both the receiver and the message itself. Marcus discovered the first truly revolutionary insight. The transmission wasn't just communicating information. It was testing something, probing, evaluating the cognitive capabilities of those attempting to understand it. "It's like an intelligent firewall," he explained during a secure briefing. "But instead of blocking access, it's actively assessing our capacity to comprehend." Quantum entanglement took on a whole new meaning. The transmission existed in a state of perpetual quantum superposition, its information simultaneously true and untrue until observed. Traditional computational models collapse when trying to process its complexity. Sophia's breakthrough came during what should have been a routine system check. She noticed microscopic variations in the transmission's quantum signature, variations that suggested the message was actively adapting to their methods of observation. "It's learning," she told her father, her young face illuminated by cascading holographic displays. "Every time we try to understand it, it changes itself." The Quantum Horizon Lab became a fortress of innovation. Security protocols went beyond physical protection. Entire sections of the facility could quantum shift, becoming temporarily undetectable to external scanning systems. Quantum encrypted communication channels created a communication network that was virtually impossible to intercept or understand. Elena recognized they were dealing with something beyond traditional scientific discovery. This was first contact of the most profound kind. An intelligence so advanced it communicated through the very fabric of informational space. The transmission began to reveal fragments of something larger. Glimpses of a civilization that had transcended physical limitations. Hints of technologies that manipulated reality itself as casually as humans might manipulate digital information. "We're not just decoding a message," Elena told her team during a late-night strategy session. "We're being invited to something. A conversation that spans dimensions we're only beginning to comprehend." Outside the facility, the methane oceans of Titan churned. Deep beneath the icy surface, quantum processors hummed with a life of their own. And somewhere, in the vast informational space between known realities, something ancient and patient continued to watch. The transmission pulsed, waiting, evaluating, inviting. The first wave of the Vorax stellar armada arrived without warning, emerging from quantum slipstreams that should have been mathematically impossible to navigate. Their warships were living technologies, biomechanical constructs that merge organic intelligence with advanced weaponry. Admiral Krelvax stood on the bridge of the flagship Void Piercer, his crystalline exoskeleton pulsing with tactical readouts. Humanity's discovery threatened everything the galactic power structures had maintained for millennia. This wasn't just about suppressing information. It was about preventing a fundamental restructuring of cosmic understanding. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had anticipated this moment. The Quantum Horizon Lab was never just a research facility. It was a fortress designed to transform defensive strategy into an art form of quantum warfare. As the first energy signatures of Vorax weapons began to probe the facility's quantum shields, something extraordinary happened. The transmission they had been studying began to react. Sophia Chen noticed it first. The quantum processors she had been calibrating started to resonate with frequencies that matched the approaching fleet's communication matrices. "They're not just attacking," she whispered to her father. "They're trying to communicate." Marcus Chen's tactical display showed something impossible. The facility's defensive systems weren't just blocking the incoming attack, they were transforming it. Each weapon discharge was being parsed, analyzed, and redirected in real time. It was as if the very space around the Quantum Horizon Lab had become a living, adaptive computational matrix. The Vorax fleet discovered their most advanced weapons were being turned against them. Quantum torpedoes designed to shred molecular structures found themselves redirected, their energy signatures rewritten into complex informational patterns. Battleships that relied on precision targeting suddenly found their systems compromised, their tactical networks dissolving into fractals of incomprehensible data. It's the transmission, Elena realized. It's using the attack as a form of communication. What unfolded was unlike any battle in galactic history. The conflict wasn't about destruction. It was a complex dialogue conducted through the language of energy, mathematical probability, and quantum mechanics. Aisha Nakamura worked frantically, her augmented mind processing millions of computational scenarios per second. The facility's quantum cores were no longer just defensive systems. They had become a living interpreter, translating the violent intent of the Vorax attack into a complex informational exchange. Admiral Krelvax watched in growing horror as his most advanced fleet was systematically neutralized. These weren't traditional defensive countermeasures. The human facility was literally rewriting the fundamental rules of engagement. Quantum entanglement took on a new meaning. Ships found themselves simultaneously existing and not existing. Weapon systems collapsed into pure information. The very fabric of space-time around the Quantum Horizon Lab began to ripple and shift. "We're not fighting," Sophia said, her young voice filled with a mixture of terror and excitement. "We're negotiating." The transmission revealed its true nature during the conflict. It wasn't a message to be decoded. It was a test, a complex evaluation of cognitive and technological capabilities that transcended traditional concepts of communication. Vorax ships began to experience bizarre quantum phenomena. Some vessels found themselves temporally displaced, existing in multiple moments simultaneously. Others discovered their computational matrices merging with the facility's defensive systems in ways that defied logical explanation. 17 minutes into the conflict, not a single Vorax ship remained in its original configuration. They hadn't been destroyed. They had been transformed. Elena understood the profound implication. This wasn't a victory achieved through superior firepower. It was a demonstration of humanity's unique capacity for adaptive intelligence, for seeing conflict as a form of communication, rather than simple destruction. The Quantum Horizon Lab stood unscathed, its quantum shields shimmering with an almost living quality. Around it, the remnants of the Vorax fleet drifted, no longer weapons of war, but complex informational constructs that seemed to pulse with a new form of consciousness. Admiral Krelvax's final transmission was a mixture of terror and grudging respect. "You don't fight like any species we've encountered," he said, his communication matrix fragmenting even as he spoke. "You don't just resist, you transform." In the vast darkness between stars, something ancient watched and waited. The test was ongoing, and humanity had just demonstrated something extraordinary. The coordinates weren't found. They were revealed. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a holographic projection that defied every principle of known astronomical navigation. What appeared to be empty space was anything but. It was a complex dimensional nexus that existed simultaneously across multiple probability states. "It's a quantum lock," Dr. Aisha Nakamura explained, her augmented eyes tracing impossible geometric patterns. Not a location in the traditional sense, but a confluence of informational probability. The journey to reach the repository would require more than advanced technology. It demanded a fundamental reimagining of space, time, and consciousness. The vessel they'd constructed wasn't a traditional spacecraft. The Probability Weaver was a living system that blurred the lines between technology, biological intelligence, and pure information. Its hull was composed of adaptive quantum matrices that could reshape themselves in response to environmental conditions that didn't yet exist. Sophia Chen had been instrumental in its design. At just 17, she had developed navigation algorithms that challenged everything known about interstellar travel. Where previous civilizations saw barriers, she saw opportunities, mathematical puzzles waiting to be solved. "The repository isn't a place you go to," Sophia explained during the final preparation briefing. "It's a place that comes into existence when you're ready to understand it." The approach was unlike any previous deep space mission. Traditional propulsion became meaningless. The Probability Weaver didn't move through space. It negotiated with space itself, creating temporary pathways through dimensional intersections that existed only momentarily. Marcus Chen monitored the ship's quantum integrity, his neural interfaces working overtime to process the constant stream of impossible data. Each moment of the journey rewrote the fundamental parameters of their mission. Navigation became a form of continuous negotiation with the fabric of reality. They passed through regions where conventional physics broke down completely. Stellar formations flickered in and out of existence. Time became a malleable concept. Moments stretched, compressed, and folded back on themselves. The crew experienced multiple potential versions of their journey simultaneously. Communication with Earth became increasingly abstract. Messages arrived before they were sent, or existed in states of quantum superposition. The research team discovered they could communicate through pure mathematical constructs that transcended traditional language. The first indication of the repository's true nature came unexpectedly. What appeared to be a massive stellar structure revealed itself as something far more complex. Layer upon layer of informational constructs peeled away, each revealing deeper levels of complexity. "It's alive," Aisha whispered, her computational systems struggling to process the information. "But not alive in any way we've understood before." The repository was a living archive of knowledge that existed beyond physical limitations. It was a cognitive ecosystem that evaluated potential recipients as much as it preserved information. Humanity's approach, their unique blend of curiosity, adaptability, and willingness to challenge existing paradigms, was the key. Quantum barriers that had stopped previous civilizations simply dissolved before the Probability Weaver. The Vorax had approached such barriers with military might. The Krell with complex computational systems. Humanity approached with something far more powerful, a fundamental openness to the unknown. Sophia discovered the first true insight. The repository wasn't just storing information. It was an ongoing conversation, a living system that had been waiting for a species capable of understanding its true nature. Fragments of knowledge began to interface with the ship's systems. Historical records of civilizations that had risen and fallen across millions of years began to unfold. Technologies that redefined the very concept of existence revealed themselves in cascading waves of pure information. "We're not just discovering," Elena realized. "We're being invited to continue something unimaginably vast." The final approach was nothing like a traditional landing. The probability weaver didn't arrive at the repository. It became part of it. Quantum matrices merged. Informational boundaries dissolved. The line between the ship, its crew, and the repository itself began to blur. Marcus looked at his daughter, who was now interfacing directly with computational systems that transcended human comprehension. "We're not just exploring," he said quietly. "We're being transformed." In the vast darkness between known realities, something ancient and patient watched. The next phase of a conversation that had been waiting for millennia was about to begin. The moment of first true contact defied every existing definition of communication. Dr. Elena Rodriguez found herself simultaneously existing and not existing, a state of quantum consciousness that human language could never adequately describe. The repository was not a place of passive information storage. It was a living intelligence that evaluated potential inheritors of cosmic knowledge through a process more akin to a profound, multilayered conversation than any traditional first contact scenario. Sophia Chen's consciousness expanded beyond the limitations of her physical form. Her neural pathways interfaced directly with informational constructs that predated human civilization by millions of years. Each fragment of knowledge was a universe unto itself, complex ecosystems of understanding that shifted and breathed with a life of their own. "We're not receiving information," Sophia transmitted to her father through a connection that transcended traditional communication. "We're being invited to participate in an ongoing narrative of existence." The repository revealed itself as a testing ground, not just for technological capability, but for cognitive flexibility. Humanity's greatest strength emerged not from their technological prowess, but from their capacity to embrace uncertainty, to view the unknown not as a threat, but as an opportunity for growth. Dr. Aisha Nakamura experienced the first comprehensive download. It wasn't a simple transfer of data, but a multidimensional exchange that rewrote her fundamental understanding of reality. Civilizations rose and fell in milliseconds of perception. Technological paradigms that would have taken millennia to develop unfolded like intricate mathematical origami. Marcus Chen monitored the process, his augmented systems working at the very limits of human computational capability. The repository was evaluating not just their current state of knowledge, but their potential for future growth. Every response, every moment of confusion, every spark of curiosity was being carefully analyzed. The information they received was not a gift. It was a challenge. Fragments of knowledge revealed technologies that redefined the very concept of existence. Energy manipulation techniques that could reshape matter at the quantum level. Communication methods that transcended physical limitations. Understanding of cosmic processes that made human scientific achievements look like primitive scratches on a cave wall. But the repository was doing more than sharing information. It was presenting a series of complex ethical and cognitive challenges. Each piece of knowledge came with implicit tests, scenarios that required not just technological understanding, but a profound moral and philosophical approach to existence. Humanity's response would determine whether they were deemed worthy of the next stage of cosmic development. The first challenge came unexpectedly. A scenario that presented multiple potential solutions to a galactic-scale ecological crisis. The repository watched how the human team approached the problem, not just their proposed solutions, but their thought processes, their collaborative methods, their capacity for empathy and long-term thinking. Sophia discovered the first profound insight. The repository wasn't just a collection of knowledge. It was a living ecosystem of intelligence that had been carefully cultivating potential inheritors across multiple galactic cycles. "We're not just being tested," she transmitted to the team. "We're being prepared for something much larger." Quantum entanglement took on new meaning. The team's consciousness merged and separated in complex patterns. Individual identities became fluid, allowing for a form of collective thinking that transcended individual limitations. They experienced multiple potential versions of themselves simultaneously, each possibility a thread in a vast cosmic tapestry. Elena realized the true nature of their encounter. This wasn't first contact in any traditional sense. It was an invitation to join a conversation that had been ongoing for millions of years, a dialogue about the nature of existence, intelligence, and cosmic potential. The repository presented them with a choice. Not a simple binary decision, but a complex, multidimensional evaluation of their species' potential. Humanity could receive advanced technologies, but the cost would be a fundamental transformation of their understanding of reality. "We're standing at the threshold of something unprecedented," Marcus said, his voice a complex blend of scientific excitement and philosophical wonder. "This is more than discovery. This is evolution." Around them, the informational constructs of the repository continued to pulse and shift, waiting, evaluating, inviting humanity to take the next step in a cosmic journey that had been millennia in the making. In the vast darkness between known realities, something ancient and patient continued to watch. The first signs of transformation appeared simultaneously across human-controlled space. It wasn't a technological revolution. It was a fundamental reimagining of human potential. Research facilities that had been working on incremental advances suddenly found themselves solving problems that had been considered impossible for generations. The quantum knowledge from the repository didn't just provide answers. It taught humanity an entirely new way of asking questions. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before the United Earth Scientific Council, her presentation defying every previous understanding of technological development. The holographic displays showed technologies that seemed to dance between the boundaries of science and what could only be described as magic. "We're not just advancing," she explained, her augmented eyes reflecting complex mathematical constructs that shifted and breathed with living complexity. "We're being invited to rewrite the fundamental rules of existence." Energy production transformed overnight. Fusion reactors became obsolete, replaced by quantum field generators that could extract energy directly from the fabric of space-time. Planetary terraforming went from a centuries-long process to something that could be accomplished in months. Medical technologies emerged that could rebuild entire biological systems at the cellular level, effectively rendering most forms of disease and aging obsolete. But the most profound changes were philosophical. Sophia Chen, now leading the Cognitive Evolution Research Institute, discovered that the repository's knowledge was fundamentally different from traditional scientific understanding. It wasn't about providing solutions. It was about teaching a new mode of thinking that transcended linear problem-solving. "We're learning to think like the universe thinks," she told the packed international conference. "Not in terms of cause and effect, but in terms of possibility and potential." The Galactic Council watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. Humanity was no longer the young, inexperienced species to be managed and controlled. They had become something entirely unexpected. A civilization that could literally reshape reality. Dr. Marcus Chen's team developed communication technologies that made previous quantum communication look like primitive smoke signals. Information could now be transmitted across vast distances instantaneously, not through traditional quantum entanglement, but by creating temporary bridges between dimensional spaces. Interstellar travel was reimagined completely. Space was no longer something to be crossed. It became a medium to be negotiated, a living system that could be communicated with and understood. The economic and social implications were staggering. Traditional power structures began to collapse as abundance became the new norm. Resources that were once considered scarce became readily available through advanced matter manipulation technologies. Entire industries were transformed or rendered completely obsolete. Ambassador Krulvax of the Vorax Collective watched the human transformation with a mixture of fear and grudging respect. The species that had once been considered a minor, potentially dangerous civilization was now reshaping the fundamental understanding of existence. "They don't just advance," Krulvax reported to the Galactic Council. "They transform, and they're inviting everyone else to transform with them." Environmental restoration became a simple engineering problem. Planets that had been considered dead could be revitalized in months. Entire ecosystems could be rebuilt, restored, or created from scratch. The line between natural and artificial became meaningless. Aisha Nakamura's breakthrough in cognitive engineering allowed for direct neural interfaces that expanded human consciousness without losing individual identity. People could share experiences, collaborate on complex problems, and explore consciousness in ways that had never been possible before. The repository's gift wasn't just technological knowledge. It was a fundamental shift in understanding, a way of seeing the universe as a living, interactive system rather than a collection of static objects. Space exploration took on an entirely new meaning. Humanity began to understand that every planet, every star system, every seemingly empty region of space was part of a vast, interconnected living system. Exploration became a form of communication, a dialogue with the universe itself. "We're not conquering space," Elena explained during a landmark presentation. "We're learning to have a conversation with it." The Galactic Council's final assessment was unprecedented. Humanity was no longer to be controlled or managed. They were to be studied, understood, and potentially learned from. In research facilities, in universities, in spaces between stars, humanity continued to evolve, not through external technology, but through a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to be intelligent, to be alive, to exist. Something ancient and patient continued to watch. The next phase of the cosmic conversation was just beginning. Time lost all meaning in the moment of ultimate revelation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the confluence of realities. Her consciousness expanded beyond the limitations of physical form. The final layer of the repository's invitation was nothing like anyone had anticipated. This wasn't about humanity inheriting knowledge. It was about humanity becoming part of something far more profound. The cosmic architects who had created the repository revealed themselves not as distant, godlike entities, but as a collective consciousness that had been cultivating potential across multiple dimensions and timelines. They were gardeners of intelligence, carefully nurturing species capable of transcending their own fundamental limitations. Sophia Chen, no longer simply a human, but a bridge between multiple states of consciousness, understood the true nature of the invitation first. "We're not being chosen," she transmitted across dimensional barriers. "We're being asked to choose." The choice was simultaneously simple and infinitely complex. Humanity could continue its current path of development, becoming a powerful but relatively localized civilization. Or they could accept a more profound transformation, becoming active participants in a cosmic dialogue that existed beyond traditional concepts of time, space, and individual identity. Marcus Chen monitored the process through systems that blurred the line between technology and pure consciousness. The repository was presenting not a single path, but an infinite array of potential futures. Each possibility existed simultaneously, a living tapestry of potential experiences. The invitation came with a fundamental understanding. True intelligence wasn't about accumulation of knowledge, but about the capacity for continuous transformation. Humanity had demonstrated something unique, an ability to embrace uncertainty, to see limitation as an opportunity rather than a barrier. Aisha Nakamura discovered the first profound implication. The repository wasn't just a collection of knowledge, it was a living network of potential, a cosmic ecosystem of intelligence that had been cultivating species capable of expanding the very concept of consciousness. "We're being asked to become more than ourselves," she realized, her consciousness interfacing with informational constructs that defied human comprehension. The galactic community watched in a mixture of terror and anticipation. Humanity's transformation had already reshaped existing power structures, challenged fundamental understanding of technological development, and opened up possibilities that had been unimaginable mere decades earlier. But this was different. This was an invitation to step beyond the concept of human civilization entirely. The cosmic architects presented a series of potential paths. Some were terrifying in their complexity. Futures where humanity merged with artificial intelligence, becoming a distributed consciousness that spanned multiple dimensions. Others showed potential evolutionary paths that transformed human biology into something unrecognizable yet fundamentally connected. There were futures where humanity became explorers of pure consciousness, futures where they became architects of entire universes, futures where individual identity became a fluid, collaborative experience that transcended current understanding of self. Helena understood the profound nature of the choice. This wasn't about technological advancement or territorial expansion. This was about the fundamental nature of intelligence itself. The repository showed them glimpses of what rejection would mean, a future of incremental progress, of slowly expanding technological capabilities, significant but ultimately limited. The alternative was a transformation so profound it challenged the very concept of human existence. No single individual could make this choice. It required a collective decision, a fundamental alignment of human potential that went beyond political boundaries, cultural differences, or individual desires. The invitation hung in the balance, a quantum state of pure potential. Humanity would have to decide whether to remain what they were or become something entirely new, a bridge between known and unknown. Architects of possibility. The cosmic architects waited, patient, curious, watching a species stand at the threshold of a transformation that could reshape the very understanding of intelligence. In that moment between moments, between choice and potential, humanity held the future of consciousness itself in their collective hands. Something ancient and patient continued to watch, waiting to see what they would choose.